Hello and welcome to Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist Church in Pasadena. Welcome to all members, friends, and guests here in person and virtually. My name is Andy Eaton and I'm a member of your Board of Trustees. Neighborhood Church creates and grows an inclusive community of faith connected by love, spirit, and service. We acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrieleno Tongva peoples, the traditional caretakers of the lands and waters of this campus. With respect for the rights and wisdom of indigenous people, we acknowledge our harmful colonial histories and commit to decolonizing our own practices, to learning new ways of being in community, in good relationship with the indigenous people of this land and with the land itself. Today's service is led by Mona Recalde, tribal member of the Gabrieleno Tongva people, and Art Morales, tribal elder. Art is a former chairman of the tribe and has been featured in several books about the native peoples of the LA Basin. Mona currently serves as the tribal outreach coordinator. Our music today is by Wells Lang, and our choir directed this week by Michael Fausto. We're so excited to welcome these tribal representatives who will help us learn more about the Gabrieleno Tongva history, present, and hopes for the future. Please take a moment to silence your devices as we begin our service. Thank you for joining us as we continue to prioritize connection over perfection in this hybrid service, which is streamed and recorded on YouTube. Based on guidance from our COVID safety team, masks are recommended, though optional for congregants inside and are optional outside. Families with young children are welcome in the sanctuary, the narthex, or in our new family lounge located in the living room of the neighborhood house, where the service is live streamed on a big screen. The lounge is staffed by a host to help you feel at home. Please join me in welcoming our new social justice coordinator, Deirdre Price. Deirdre, if you could stand up. You can find out more about her in the newsletter or just bother her on the patio. Join us next Sunday for potluck lunch and the congregational meeting, which is the final step in preparing our ministerial search congregational packet. There's a drop-in chalice circle this afternoon at 1 p.m. at Neighborhood House. If you have not explored chalice circles, this is a great opportunity to do so. If you wish to learn more about the Gabrieleno Tongva, there will be a Q&A in the chapel after the service. Here to talk about this week's virtual workshop on examining our biases and practicing belonging is Paul Wallace, a member of our search committee. Paul?
Thank you, Andy. Good morning. It is still morning, right? I'm Paul Wallace, and I'm honored to serve as a member of the Senior Minister Search Committee. We've been meeting for several months now. And the search requires input from all of us, and I hope all of you had filled out the congregational survey and in September and had an opportunity to participate in some of the cottage meetings that we had in October. These are all important inputs for us in the search committee to make sure that we are understanding what the needs of the congregation are as we're looking for a senior minister. As you may know, our stellar interim senior minister, Reverend Teresa Cooley, will end her stay here at Neighborhood around the middle of next year, 2023. One part of the search process asks the congregation to consider what biases it has, both conscious and unconscious, concerning the type of person that congregants might picture in the pulpit of the church. Some of you may recall the last spring, the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association's Keith Cron of the transition team led a workshop on April 23rd that was entitled Beyond Categorical Thinking. We only had about 18 people that came to that. Perhaps it wasn't as well publicized as it could have been. But that workshop we feel is valuable for all of us as part of the congregation and as part of the search process as well. And to that, and to get an opportunity for all of us to be able to see the input that we got from that very valuable workshop, there's going to be another opportunity This next week, you've probably seen it in the newsletter if you're reading the newsletter, Tuesday and Thursday it'll be a Zoom format, from 6 to 8 p.m. we'll offer that workshop again. Will be hosted by Patrice Curtis of the UUA. And that will cover a couple of topics. Explore how thinking categorically about people could interfere with choosing the best candidate for senior minister. And consider your hopes, expectations, and concerns for a new minister. So this is really important stuff for us to think about as a congregation as we're looking for a new senior minister. If you have not yet signed up, the link is in the Neighborhood Church virtual newsletter that was emailed last Thursday. So that's where you'll find the link for this workshop. How many have already signed up for it, incidentally? Oh, good. Good, we're getting there. All right. The workshop title in the newsletter is Examining Our Biases and Practicing Belonging. We kind of kicked around whether beyond categorical thinking would communicate properly to what we're really trying to get at, but that's the essence of it. So by all means, check your newsletter, and if you haven't yet signed up, there's still opportunity for that. I look forward to seeing you on the Zoom meeting Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30. If you have any questions, I or a member of the search committee will be available after service to help fill in the blanks. Thank you in advance for your time and energy to help us identify a new senior minister.
Thank you, Paul. Our order of service and more extensive announcements are available as a link in the Sunday email posted in the narthex or through the QR code on the back of your hymnal. You can always get more information on these and many other activities at the welcome table. Again, welcome to Neighborhood Church, whoever you are and wherever you are in your spiritual journey. Welcome to this inclusive faith community connected by love, spirit, and service.
Good morning. Reverend Teresa Cooley is very sorry not to be with us today as she recovers from bronchitis. She is starting to feel better and sends her warm welcome and deep gratitude to our guests today. I'm Elizabeth Sadlon, president of the congregation, and will do my best to fill in for her in today's service. Our invocation is from Karen Johnston. As we gather this morning, let us be a people of not forgetting. Let us practice holding collective memories that might otherwise slip into that enormous void that sucks at and corrodes any future we hold dear. Let us practice honoring truth-telling, up from the past that must come fully into the new, lest we falter and fall, lest the whole remain in pieces. Let not our need for comfort or simplicity, for easy forgiveness or a false pardon, smother the heartbreak that still needs healing. Let us practice resilience with reckoning. Let us marry memory and promise. Let us dance in the tension we find there. Let us rest in the integrity we cultivate there. Let us be partners with the possibility that emerges there. It is good we gather.
Good morning. Our gathering hymn today is number 1000, Morning Has Come. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our gathering hymn.
Good morning. I'm Matt Vasco, Neighborhood's Director of Religious Education. May I please have all of the children and youth forward for a story for all ages. Welcome, kids. It was so good to see a lot of you on Friday night for our first Friday celebration. That was a really good time. We had lots of games and fun, didn't we? Today's book is a traditional Tongva story that's been turned into a children's book, children's picture book. It's called Wa'aka, the bird who fell in love with the sun, by Cindy M. Alvitre, illustrations by Carly Lake, and I'll read a little from the about here. Wa'aka is a telling of a creation story from the Tongva, who have lived in Southern California for thousands of years. It takes place on the island of Pimu, just off the Southern California coast. Illustrator Carly Lake was inspired after hearing the narrative, and she created a series of watercolor images that, together with the text, resulted in this book. Wa'aka, the bird who fell in love with the sun. Wa'aka was born when the earth was soft and the waters were new. It was the beginning of time. One day, Wyatt, our creator, at the edge of the quiet, empty world, he felt very lonely. He thought, I need to fill this place. Wyatt had many powers that could do many things. He took sand in his hand and he blew it into the four directions. The grains of sand touched the earth and they turned into leaves. Plants began to grow. The first plant was a giant tree full of acorns. Ehi, said Wyatt, your name will be oak, and your fruit will feed all. The second was a smaller tree with leaves of gray and silver. Wyatt named the tree white sage. You will be medicine that all might use for good, Wyatt said with respect. The third tree had branches that kissed the earth when the wind blew. This one Wyatt named Willow. Shaksat will shelter all from cold, he said. The last plant, golden as the sun, brought beauty to the world. Wyatt named it Island Poppy. Wyatt watched with joy as his magic came alive. But Wyatt did more. He dipped his hands into the ocean and mixed red earth with the water. Then the winged ones came. Owl came first, for she saw in the dark when no one else could. Then came Kingfisher, who promised to be honest and loyal to Wyatt. Raven came next, dark and noble, a good listener. Last was Wa'aka, sleek and beautiful. Her white feathers glowed like pearls in the sand, and she became Wyatt's favorite. Yet, even with these creations, the earth was still cold and dark. So Wyatt asked Island Poppy for light. Island Poppy pulled a petal from her crown, and a spark of gold flashed in the dark. Wyatt mixed the petal with a ball of soil. As he rolled it in his hand, it grew larger than all the other larger than all the other creations. Tamet, the sun, was born. Tamet shone the brightest of them all, and he was kind and caring to everyone. He and Wa'aka became friends. One day, Tamet and Wa'aka went walking and found a pond. They sat at the edge. Tamet gazed at Wa'aka, and he was falling in love with her. But she didn't notice him. She was too busy looking at herself in the water. She thought, oh, how beautiful I am, more beautiful than anyone else. Each day, Wa'aka made Tamet come to the water so she could admire her own beauty. Soon, she forgot about everyone else. She even refused to work. I can't go pick acorns, she'd say. I might dirty my beautiful white feathers. The others saw these changes. They also saw change in Tamet. He was growing larger and rounder and hotter, so hot that the water dried up, and so did the leaves of the trees. Wyatt and Tamet went to their council to talk about this problem, as this was the way it was done back then. If we don't do something, the council said to Tamet, we'll all die from your heat. We have to send you up to the sky. Then you can still be with us, but you will not harm us. It made Tamet to think about leaving, but he also felt for his brothers and sisters. I must travel to the heavens, but how? Owl, full of wisdom, said, let's weave a net out of fibers from all the plants. We can gather around the net and toss Tamet into the heavens. They all agreed, except for Wa'aka. She shouted, how can you take him from me? Without him near, how will I see my beauty? He is mine. The others cried out, Wa'aka, what has happened to you? You were once so beautiful, but your vanity has made you ugly. And Wyatt said to Wa'aka, you must help your brothers and sisters, not hurt them. Tamet will go. But Wa'aka did not want to give up Tamet. So she made a secret plan. The next day, everyone gathered by the water, and each held part of the net they had woven, and they placed Tamet in the center. Wa'aka pretended to help, but she would not let Tamet go. She would hold on to him as he was tossed into the sky. Then, she thought, I will always be with him, and everyone will see me in this great light forever. That will show them. As they tossed Tamet up, he flew to one side of the sky and came down. They tried again, and this time Tamet flew to the center of the sky before he fell to earth. The third time, they put more strength into it, heaving him high. He floated for a moment, then fell once more. They kept going, lifting with all their might, tossing Tamet high above them. As they lifted the net one last time, Wa'aka held on to Tamet, and they rose together. But as they entered the heavens, Tamet grew much larger than he had been on earth. It was too hot for Wa'aka. She fell from the sky. Her beautiful white feathers burned black. The others looked up amazed. Not only did Tamet stay in the sky, but the net that carried him turned into 1,000,000 stars that gave even more light and warmth. Here we have a picture of the night sky. They were pleased, but not with Wa'aka. Wyatt turned to her and said, because you were selfish, you will not see the light of Tamet. You will sleep by day, and only by night can you come out, so that Grandmother Moon can watch over you. To this day, we see the dark feathers of Wa'aka as she sits upon the waters at night, waiting for the light of Grandmother Moon so she can gaze upon herself. This is the only light she will ever know. She is the black-crowned night heron. The end. All right, it's time for us to sing you out to your classes.
Please join me in a spirit of meditation with this prayer by Kathleen McTeague, followed by a period of shared silence and reflection. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us, it is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. Amen. Beautiful, thank you. As we recognize each Sunday, we are here on the traditional lands of the Gabrieleno Tongva, the first people of Los Angeles and Orange County. Today's service is dedicated to deepening our understanding of our history and living into our commitment to being in authentic relationship with the First Peoples, today in service of a shared future. I am honored to welcome Elder Art Morales and Mona Morales-Recalde to our pulpit. Art Morales is an elder and enrolled tribal member of the Gabrieleno Tongva, San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians. He currently serves as tribal historian and photographer. His life has been dedicated to living on native land and working to preserve the culture, traditions, awareness, and presence. Art served as tribal chairman and was one of the first to serve as a Native American monitor for the state of California. Elder Art has been featured in documentaries and several books regarding the Native people of the Los Angeles Basin. Mona Morales-Recalde is an enrolled member of the Gabrieleno Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians. She currently serves as the Tribal Community Outreach Director. Her family maintains tradition and continuity to their tribe by living on the tribal traditional land and knowing its precious history. Mona maintains connection and community through volunteering at Kuruvunga, participating in native beading circles, and singing traditional songs. Mona has given presentations to education institutions and various organizations about the Gabrieleno Tongva and maintaining cultural traditions. She's an elder at Laverne Heights Presbyterian Church and currently serves as clerk of session. Welcome.
Miha, netwa natne Mona Morales-Recalde. Hello, my name is Mona Morales-Recalde. I would like to start by saying thank you. We appreciate the time and care your church has taken and offered in sharing this time and space about our people. The information that we are going to share with you is the best of our knowledge. We will share with you that there have been some preservation issues with our history, so what we share with you is the best that we know of today. We plan to talk about our history, talk about some common issues that impact Native Americans as a whole, and some that are specific to us as Gabrieleno Tongva. I'm also going to speak to you personally about being a Native American and my Christian belief. In a good way, we want to share about our people and culture, and we hope that we're able to leave you with some takeaways and things to meditate on the weeks to come. With that being said, I would like to introduce my dad, Art Morales. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to start by saying that our history is very complicated and it's very convoluted. It's 249 years of mixed history and things that have occurred that the tribe has had to go through. It's difficult to summarize 249 years in about 15 minutes, but I'll do my best. Our boundaries, if you're not familiar with it, would be all of Los Angeles and Orange County, including the southern Channel Islands. Our boundaries would have been the Santa Monica Mountains to the San Gabriel Mountains, down to Aliso Creek, down towards Laguna Beach. And again, it would be the southern Channel Islands that we had at that time. We're not like other tribes. Some people still think that we live in teepees, and we lived in reeds. A reed is a plant that grows in marshy areas, and we were made dome-shaped homes that were built at the time. I don't think that we're like other tribes that are east of us, but all of California tribes are very similar in the type of dress that we have. We're all basket makers, And I think that we're kind of a combination, personally I think, a combination of the island type people and then Native Americans within, the rest of California, or I mean the United States, I'm sorry. In that California at that time, I believe, was pretty much like the islands. If you went out to the ocean, you would end up with the same, type of, plant life, fish, and so on. And this was pretty much considered a paradise. And so there again, no teepees, and we're just unique in itself by all California tribes. The first explorer that came to California was Portolo, and my daughter will cover that later. Those that are not familiar, we had a priest by the name of Father Sarah, and he came up from south of the border right now, because this area was all Mexico at the time. For those that don't know, the majority of California and some of Arizona and New Mexico was all Mexico at that time. But he came north, and he was responsible for building 21 missions from San Diego up to San Francisco. San Gabriel was the fourth mission that he built. It was built before Los Angeles became a city, and it was built by the backbone of all the Native Americans, our people that lived in the surrounding villages in that area. The current mission as a school, high school, football field, and so on. We have ancestors that we know are built, that are buried underneath the parking lots, the church, the school, and at one time there was the belief and stories that some of our people had actually been buried in the walls of the church itself. At that time, we were converted to Catholicism, and those that did not want to participate or be part of that went out to the surrounding areas. They went out, to what we know now as, into Riverside, San Bernardino, into the mountains, into other northern tribes to get away from it. Families were separated. If a family didn't want to become Catholicized, they would separate the parents from the children until they succumbed to, becoming Catholics. Many people ask why my family and those around the San Gabriel area continue to reside in that area. And it's basically because that's the land of our ancestors. Our ancestors are buried and still in that area. And we wanted to maintain just basically that family unity. Anyway, you had the Spanish rule colonization, and we went through that period. And when the Europeans came over, we went through a second incidence of colonization, and the Native Americans here, our tribe, had been promised land grants, and obviously that wasn't recognized, when the Europeans came in, and we continued to be in servitude to them. And after their colonization, then we had the period with the gold rush, and we went through all of that. The first governor of California formally put out a bounty on our heads, women, men, and children, and it was $12 a head. And there's documentation. We have documents from Sacramento that show exactly that document, believe it or not, which is pretty hard to take. After that, it was basically the government reached out, sent Indian agents out around the 1928 in that rough area, and they started doing census, and they started recognizing us in the census. And then things continued on, and in the 40s, they came out, and we had 43 tribes here in Southern California that joined together to try to be federally recognized and see what properties we could regain. Our tribe, the Fernandeños North, the Juaneños South, obviously didn't get federally recognized. And if you think about it, why would they? Why would they put a reservation in the most plush, loving land that there is around? So basically we were left out and we're not federally recognized, basically because of that. It's money and the value of the property and the land and territory that we had at that time. Then they came back in the 70s, and they made more offers, and of course, the way that they write the paperwork and the manipulation and so on that goes on, we had to prove that we were of Gabrieleno lineage, and we were given, I think it was 15 cents an acre. So I think everybody got like $150, which was, absolutely nothing. We have never really been, let me regress back to the period between the missions and then, and so on. When the Spanish came up, they landed in Los Angeles. They called themselves Poblanos, which was settlers. And then because of the prejudices and the things that were going on between different factions and so on, then they became Californios, which is Californians, basically. They didn't want to be recognized as Native American, as Mexican, or as Spanish. So life went on for us, and we continued to have meetings, but we weren't telling anyone. Anyone in our community knew who was Native American. And we were basically redlined in an area just east of the San Gabriel Mission. And we couldn't buy property in the surrounding areas. That was it. They built a school for the people in my neighborhood, and they're the only ones that went to that school. There were no Anglos, Caucasians, or anybody else from any other race that were into that school. It was just our school. It wasn't until roughly 57 that they bussed everybody out to the schools, and there was a big uproar with that. But then that happened. But we've continued to keep our existence and having our meetings and so on throughout all this period of time. And, here we are today with, we're having more resurgence and information and interest in our Native community and things that are going on. I'm getting close to the 15 minutes, but just basically, people have asked me how when I knew I was Native American. I've always known I was Native American. It was just something that was instilled with us from the very beginning. And my first incident that was negative was in the 4th grade. I was fortunate enough to be sent out to a school that was all Anglo. And I was standing ready to go into the 4th grade, and this kid called me a dirty, filthy Indian. And obviously I'd looked Native American. How he figured that I was that versus anything else, I don't know. But after that, I got remarks like, you guys are really stinky and filthy because my father told me you rub yourselves with bear grease and so on. So those type of prejudices have actually gone on in my life at different times in grammar school and high school and so on. And I have 3 daughters. My middle daughter is darker than the other 2, and she ended up with same prejudices in school and had a teacher that told her that the Gabrieleno Tongva were extinct, which were not. So obviously I had a conversation with him. But it's been quite a journey. I was, when the Native American Heritage Commission was created in the late 70s, the elders chose me to be the leader at that time. And we had to learn how to handle our ancestors that were found in different excavations. We had one in Long Beach, University of Long Beach, Encino, and so on. And we started to become more involved with learning the proper procedures, which we had never been allowed to do in the past. And we just continue to be involved, and now, I have, my daughters are involved, even my great-granddaughter has been participating in events. But I'll have to end it because Mona has a lot to share with you, so thank you.
All right, let's get us started. So Tongva means people of the earth, and the area that we're in is called Tovangar, which is the whole area of Los Angeles and Orange County of what our people know to be. We are known as a very peaceful tribe, and the reason that we're able to be peaceful is because the land here is so fertile and it had so many natural resources to offer us that we were able to live comfortably and well off of the land. If you don't mind the next slide, please. What we lived in and what my dad referred to is a quiche, and that's what you see in the first picture there. It's a round dome. And that dome, we had a sophisticated governing system of our tribes and of our villages. We had approximately 150 villages across LA and Orange County. The size of the key was dependent on where you sat in the government structure of our people and of the tribe of that village. So that's an example, and that's made out of tulle. How we lived is off of the land, and the land was very fertile here with berries, choke cherries, yucca, abalone. It would be one of the main seafoods that that we used, and abalone was also something that we would use for decorations in our regalia. The bottom picture that you see there is baskets and acorns. So acorns was a staple in our diet, and for acorns, we would make an acorn mush, and we had a sophisticated way of cleansing the acorns to remove the tannins, because acorn on its own is extremely bitter. I don't recommend it, unless it's properly processed. We were avid basket makers, and we had 4 primary natural resources that we would use to make baskets. We could weave baskets that were watertight just with the baskets alone. And in addition to that, we would use tar from, let's say, the La Brea tar pits as a natural resource to ensure that things would become watertight. One of the things that our people did was we would make canoes. We were known for being good sea navigators, and we would use canoes that were called teots in our language. And as my dad shared, we were from the Channel Islands as well, and so we would use the teots to get from the mainland over to the Channel Islands. In fact, there is an event that happens in September at the Long Beach Aquarium where some natives will still take a teot back and forth from Catalina. I personally haven't done it. It's too adventurous for me. So I wanted to set the stage about the way that we view, how we were able to sustain in order to go on to the next conversations that we're about to have. So if you don't mind, next slide, please. What I want to do before I get into specific issues about the Gabrieleno Tongva is I want to bring awareness to some of the issues that are impacting Native Americans today, not necessarily in our tribe, but some do affect our tribe, and I want to share that with you. The first one is that this week, on November 9th, our Supreme Court will be hearing a case about the Indian Child Welfare Act. And this was put in place as a safeguard to address the systemic removal of Native children from their families, communities, and culture. And it was put in place to protect Native children. If this is overturned, it will put tribal sovereignty into question, not just tribal sovereignty, but also the ability to protect sacred sites, burial grounds, and drinking water. So please have that in your thoughts and considerations as we go into this next week. I often say that us as Tongva or Native Americans were the first environmentalists. When we lived off of the earth, we lived in balance and in relation with the earth, and it was a harmony that we had to have, a reciprocal relationship. We took care of the earth, and the earth took care of us. And so climate crisis is something that's very important to the Tongva people and Native people as a whole. The other item that I would be remiss not to mention is about the generational trauma that impacted Natives, everything from residential schools and to relocation. So for those that don't know, residential schools were put in place, and there were 2 in this area, one in San Gabriel, and there's one still called, in the San Bernardino area. What would happen is that Native children would be removed from their homes and separated into the residential schools. They would be forced to cut their hair, lose their language, and lose their song and dance as a forced way of assimilation. So this happened, and this is part of the reason why our history is patched in pieces, where it's not something that we have it as a pretty bow that we could always share, because of what happened to it is that it got disseminated throughout the years. So we are actively taking the efforts that we can take to ensure that we have cultural preservation and education, and that's one of the keystones that's important to our tribe, is to make sure that we're doing that. And one of the ways that we say that we do that, and our chief often has a story that he tells, that there was a question about how do we preserve our culture, and the chief would say, we do it by hiding it in our children. And the idea is that by hiding it in our children, it grows within them, and then they're able to hide it within their children. So it's very important to us that we do everything we can to make sure that we are staying visible and that we are doing everything we can from a cultural preservation perspective. Excuse me, I'm going to move now to issues, no, I'm sorry, the previous one. I'm going to move now to the issues that are directly impacting the Gabrieleno Tongva today. So the first is erasure, and that's where we come back and say, we're visible, we're here. Because we don't have the federal recognition, it impacts us quite a bit as a tribe. One of the ways that it impacts us is there is a national law called NAGPRA, and if an ancestor is found when someone's building a new building or something to that effect, the government has a law that the remains can only be returned to a federally recognized tribe. So if an ancestor is found, it doesn't come back to us. It goes to a neighboring tribe. And whoever that neighboring tribe has a relationship with determines what they do with that ancestor. So that's a problem, right? So that's something that, one thing that federal recognition would give us is the ability to have access to our ancestors when they're discovered. My dad briefly spoke about the Indians Claim Act and the fact that that was an opportunity that we had to get federal recognition. I have heard that if you take the value estimation of the land between Los Angeles and Orange County, it's about $1.3 trillion. So it's kind of obvious why they wouldn't give us land, right? That being said, it doesn't make it right. We also have erasure in local events, and I'm just gonna highlight 3 that have happened in the last probably 6 weeks of what's happened to us as Tongva people here. We celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, and our tribe is the one that works with LA City and LA County for the festivities that happen, and we do go on stage and sing. One of our local news channels identified us as Chumash. So, of course, I contacted them. That being said, Chumash is our neighbor up to the north, not us. So that's a form of erasure. Dodger Stadium had an Indigenous Peoples Day game that they had in September. They had the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians there, not the Gabrieleno Tongva. In addition to that, some of you may watch Reservation Dogs, a popular show. They have the people, their cast visit Los Angeles, and they call it Chumash Land once again, not Gabrieleno Tongva land. So we still have erasure that's happening today. And I actually want to pause real quick. Gabrieleno is the Spanish name of our tribe, and so that is where you get Gabrieleno. Tongva is the native name of our tribe. So if you hear both, they're both interchangeable. It's just that one's the Spanish name and one is the Native American name. The next item I want to talk about is our environment. People often think that the gifts that are given by Mother Earth are currency, and they're used as currency. So a quick example is white sage is often sold, and when it's sold, we believe that it loses its blessing if you burn it and you purchase it. We believe that white sage should be a gift because it's a gift from Mother Earth, and when you burn it, you're able to share that gift that's given to you. Again, we believe in living in reciprocity with the land. When LA was all Tongva land, we had 3 major rivers that flowed through Los Angeles. And now those rivers are all cemented over, one thing or another, and we do not have any type of water rights. So that's also an issue, because the water was very important to us, because water is life, right? The next item that I want to talk about is land back. So just recently, if anyone reads news, came across that there is a Tongva land conservancy. And there was a wealthy woman out of Pasadena that had 1 acre of land, and she gave the land back to the Tongva Land Conservancy. Our tribe is affiliated with that conservancy. So that is the first piece of land that our tribe has access to do ceremony or anything of that matter that we want gathering. But I want you to think about this. If you think of Los Angeles and LA County, how big and vast that whole area is, we have 1 acre that's dedicated to us, and it's because of the generosity of a woman rather than our government. Next, talking about education. So one thing that we say is Ekoshem, which means we are here. And just to make sure that you all have the visibility, we are here, we're not extinct. My dad and I went and spoke to a 4th grade class a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty fascinating about the lack of education that is shared in our education system about Native Americans. We survived 3 genocides, so the fact that we're here is pretty remarkable, right? But to share with the young children that Christopher Columbus may not have been the hero that they thought he was, right? So to teach 4th graders that it's a matter of point of view, that if you're a European or you're Christopher Columbus, you think that he's your hero, right? But from a Native American perspective, he's not your hero. So to help people understand that and help that resonate with them, and I think it's not just 4th graders that need to hear that, it's across the board. Next is about our Native culture, and what I would share about that is that as I mentioned, with residential boarding schools and the 3 genocides that our people have suffered, it's really hard for us to have documented history and records of a lot of the things of our people. And a lot of that does exist exists in museums where they have ancestors and or artifacts of ours. We don't always have access to that as tribes. And that's really unfortunate, because where we could have the opportunity to learn more about it's being kept from us. And that's really unfortunate. So that's an area that we're trying to work on and work through as well. Next slide, please. This is me personally talking. I really want to talk about being a Native and being Christian. A lot of people are like, how in the world are you a Christian if you look at what the mission system did to your people, right? It doesn't make sense. We were forced Catholicism, forced baptism, and our choice was at that time was either to become Catholic or die, is essentially what it came down to. Our people of Native belief believed we were monotheistic, and we had a creation site called Pavagna, which is on the grounds of Cal State Long Beach. We believed in Father Creator and Mother Earth. What I personally believe is that if we were to turn our back specifically on our relationship with the mission, we're turning our back on the 6,000 plus ancestors that are buried there. And that's not something that we want to do. We want to remain in connection. And in regards to my own Christian belief, I believe that what happened to the Native people was an act of man, not an act of God. And I choose to put my sights on God, not on the acts of men, and hold that anger, because I feel if I held that anger, it wouldn't do me well, and I wouldn't be setting a good example for my child. So I really try to put my sights on God and live a godly life as I can do the best that I can do. Next slide, please. Okay, here are a few takeaways. Let's lighten it up. Some things that you can do now that we've spoken. One, recognize that we're here. There are a ton of maps online where you can see what Tongva village was probably near or around your area, which are fascinating. The LA Times has some fantastic articles. Learn about us. There's a ton of resources that are available. Know whose land you're on. Whether you're in LA or you travel beyond LA, always try to know something about the indigenous people of the land that you're visiting so that helps bring awareness to it. The ways that you can make a difference: plant a native garden in your area, plant sage, plant something that is a native to this area that can help share. Volunteer yourself. Robin, who I met from your church at Cuddavungna, Cuddavungna is a site in Santa Monica, and Cuddavungna means a place in the sun. And at Cuddavungna, they have volunteer events the first Saturday of every month. It's a great place to volunteer and be in community with other people. Support local, native artists, native-owned shops. It's another great way as well to have the native awareness. As I leave you today, I just want to leave you with this final thought. When it was Tongva land, if you could imagine in your own meditation what this land looked like without the buildings, the freeways, and the development, it gives you an appreciation for the paradise that this land once was. And so as you meditate in the weeks to come, I ask you to please think about that. Awesh konohe, all be well with you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Mona. Giving is a spiritual practice through which we put our values into action. Each Sunday, our congregation dedicates 100% of contributions to a local social justice organization or activity. If you're visiting for the first or second time, welcome. You're our guest. Please let the plate pass you by. In addition to the plate, online giving is available using the QR code on the donations box just outside the sanctuary, or using the text shown on the screen. If you're a member and wish to make a payment toward your pledge, or if not a pledging member, a gift, make a note in the subject line or use an envelope available at the donation box and mark it. All Share the Plate recipients are identified by church members. To recommend an organization, fill out the application on the church website or ask a board member to connect you with the Share the Plate committee. This week, our gifts go to the Gabrieleno Tongva Tribal Council and Dance Company, and Mona will give you a few more words.
Thank you. Me again. Okay. So any donations that you give will go to our tribe, and how our tribe will use that are a variety of ways. One of the ways that our tribes use funds is to help fellow tribe members, whether that be with school supplies or when someone hits a hard time, we're able to share the gifts that are given. In addition to that, we have a funeral fund to be able to assist with funeral costs. I'm sure, hopefully, those can be expensive. In addition to that, we have a Gabrieleno band of dancers, and you can often see the dancers at the Long Beach Aquarium or other various events like Indigenous Peoples Day. Although they haven't been out lately post-COVID or pre-COVID, but anyway, we have dancers, and the funds that you use help our dancers for their regalia costs as well as for their transportation costs to get to varying events. Also, we have education scholarships for our Tongva people that are furthering their education. So the funds that you give us are very well used, and we just want to say thank you so much that you guys are so generous in having us here today, and please know that the funds will be put to good use for our people. So thank you.
Will the ushers please come forward?
In the quiet, misty morning, when the singing. I'll be homeward bound
Our closing hymn today is number 1017, Building a New Way. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our closing hymn.
So since the rain is holding off, we will gather on the patio at the tables for any conversation. Elder Art and Mona have agreed to stick around for a little bit. There's so much to talk about. So we invite you to join them there after the postlude. But first, our benediction by Peter Rabel. We warm ourselves by fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We drink from wells we did not dig. We profit from persons we did not know. We are ever bound in community. May it always be so. This is as it should be. Together we are more than any one person could be. Together we can build across the generations. Together we can renew our hope and faith in the life that is yet to unfold. Together, we can heed the call to a ministry of care and justice. We are ever bound in community. May it always be so. Amen.